particular, I'm consulting with someone and talking about a particular person who I was recently consulting on pitching his project, and he was preparing to pitch to, and he has major people like coming in to listen to him, and but every time he would pitch, it would be about his passion, and I really never knew what the project was about. And so he'd get in and he'd say, oh my God, it's going to be amazing, and it's about this, and I mean, it's going to be amazing, you're going to really love it, I promise you, Squeaky, you're going to love this. And how I was really drawn into his passion, and I'm like, okay. And then by the end of the time, I mean, when we would finish talking, I'd get off the phone and I would say, what is the project about? Like, I can't even say why I left the phone. I got off the call feeling like, whoa, it's an amazing project. And so that went on through 3 different calls. And finally I said, I don't know any more about your project than when we first met or when you first explained it to me. What really is it about? And that's the biggest problem with pitching hyperbole, pitching this exaggerated whatever hoopla of passion, and not really pitching the story, is that you leave people really excited about nothing in the end, but they're excited, and then they start piecing together their own story. And so that's why today I want to talk about when pitching, don't oversell your project using hyperbole. The biggest lesson, I guess, is to stick to the story. Right? So these are some examples. If you find yourself, or if you found yourself pitching this way, I want you to think about it and reframe how you do it. Okay. So the first one is, my example is, oh, my project would have people tuned in all across the world. That's pitching, what I call pitching hyperbole. This film is going to touch the hearts of many. This will blow people's mind. Or my TV show is going to have people crying. Like, that's pitching hyperbole. That's like, you're not really talking about anything, right? So instead, you should stick to the story, and perhaps you should answer the questions how and why, right? Or just to reframe them, tell them why it's going to do all of these things without using the exaggerated, because at the end of the day, you really can't determine what people are going to do. You can't determine if people are going to cry. You can't determine if people around the world are going to tune in. You just can't, you don't know how they will connect to it. And so you can't really sell that. But if you sell the story and you sell the why people are going to watch what you're doing, and how they're going to connect to you, then that's what you can sell. And so I've written down a few examples of how to do that. And I hope at the end that you can take it and you can look at your projects and say, well, how can I use what Squeaky has said to better pitch, my projects, to reframe all of the hyperbole that I use, and just tell the story, but do it in a way where I can pull, or you can lure the person, pull the person in that you're pitching. So let's just take the first example. Maybe talk about the themes, right? Here's an example. Many who have dealt with heartbreak will connect to this show because my lead character goes through a hurtful divorce at the top of the film and must rise above the pain of a cheating husband. You're telling them why they're going to connect to it. People who watch this, and then you're attaching the theme. You're attaching themes that, people around the world can deal with. Many people can deal with divorce. Maybe this is for divorcees. Maybe this is for people that are married or people that have been cheated on. These are the people that would connect to this show. And so you would, the way to do it is just to talk about the themes of your project and all of the people that will connect to that theme. Here's another one. Example of how I would reframe the hyperbole, why, people are going to connect. They're going to love it across the world. Okay. Audiences who love Entourage and Ballers will identify with this show because executives, my show executives, is about a team of high-powered men who are at the pinnacle of succession, right? Or something to that. I literally just made this up, but I am getting them to really think now, what kind of show is this about? When you hear the word, the shows Entourage and Ballers, I'm thinking this is a group of men and they're high powered. But now I am stirring. I'm now their minds are starting to turn or to spin because I've used other shows and to kind of get them to thinking what this show, that my show could possibly, the executives could possibly be about. So here's another example of how to reframe how you use your words or this hyperbole. I have commissioned Dan Fogelman, the writer of This Is Us, to write this film because I believe he can best touch on the sensitivities of what it is like to go through a painful divorce while at the same time managing this huge company. And so my show Executives, it's about these powerful moguls, and yet one of them is undergoing a huge divorce of his cheating wife, and he still has to rise above this every single day. And so that's why I brought Dan Fogelman on, because I thought, with his TV show This Is Us, the writers were really able to tap into what happens in the hearts and the minds of people who are undergoing depression or racist without even realizing that they're racist, or the thoughts of what's behind the minds of people that are overweight. I just felt like, Dan could really focus on those sensitivities, and I think people around the world will connect to his writing. So those are just 3 examples of how to reframe it, but it's a lot better and it's more interesting to look at than listen to than just talking about, you're going to really love this, it's going to be so good, and because the rah-rah, it's enticing. But if at the end of the day, you don't talk about the story and give the why and the hows, people are going to connect, then the people that you're pitching are going to walk away and say, but what is the story about, And through your pitch, you want to be telling what your story is about, from the top to the bottom, really. After you introduce yourself, you want to be talking about your story and not this hoopla about how people are going to take your story, especially if you haven't mentioned what it's about. And so I saw that as a huge problem, and I see it's really easy to oversell. So if you can learn anything from this my message today, it is just sell the story. Always talk about what the story is about, and connect. You can connect other stories to it to give people an idea of what it's about. You could, after you have attach different crew talent and or writers or whoever, that answers the why people will connect, because millions of people are connecting to their other works. So then of course people are going to connect to this, and then you give your why did you connect to that writer? Why did you think that writer was going to be the one that can do it? And just to give the end result of how that pitch went with this creator, this creator. And let me just say too, I really do believe that content creator is on to something. Maybe I was persuaded by the hyperbole. I still was. And I do. I just believe that there needs to be some education around how to properly pitch. And at the same time, I did discover very early on, I said, you don't know your story. Is this written? And he was truthful. He said, no, I'm looking for a writer. I said, it's obvious, because you don't know your story. You don't know your story. And if you don't know it, all you have to sell me on is the big stuff. And so that actually brings me into another part, because he's pitching too soon, right? But he may feel like, well, I have to pitch in order to attach. And you do, but it's a little too soon. What he needed to do is to have had the skeleton written out. Even if he wasn't going to be the writer, create the skeleton, create the beginning, middle, and end, and pitch that. And then attach people based on that. Attach the writer based on the skeleton that you have. And so, yes. Can you pitch too soon? Yes. You don't want to pitch too soon, because then, of course, that's all you have is the idea in here, which he would say, it's in here. I'm telling you, if I can get you in here, it's going to be so. I don't want you to pitch. Fine. If you know what's in here and you can get it through here, that's fine. But if you don't have it written down, if you don't have a clear beginning, middle, and end of where your story is going, you can't pitch it. So you lean to the hyperbole, the passion talk, because you are passionate about your project. You lean more to that than actually pitching the story that you have. And so I don't want you to make that mistake. And so I guess that's it. That's all I have as regarding the pitching hyperbole. I really hope you enjoyed this. I hope you can learn from this. Tell me if this was clear. Ask me any questions that you might have so that I can answer them, and I'll be free to answer your questions. But anyway, thanks for joining.